Xylaria stood on the edge of the crumbling rooftop, her infrared visor locked onto the human heat signature below. Jake Carter. The most frustrating target she had ever been assigned. He was right there, leaning against a rusted cargo crate, arms crossed, an infuriating smirk stretching across his face. He knew she was watching. That was impossible. No human should be able to sense an Azarian Huntress in full stealth mode. She adjusted her plasma rifle, aligning the sight directly between his smug eyes. One pull of the trigger, and the mission would be over. Then he winked. Her finger twitched on the trigger, but before she could fire, the crate beneath him gave a sudden hiss. A hollow decoy. The real Jake Carter, wherever he was, had already outmaneuvered her. Ah, Xylaria! His voice echoed from the rooftops behind her. That's the third time today. I'm starting to think you like this little chase. She spun, rifle raised, but it was too late. A metallic clink at her feet sent an immediate jolt of realization through her spine. A stunned mine. The explosion of energy sent her tumbling, her armor shielding her from the worst of it, but the blast had scrambled her visor. By the time she regained her footing, Jake was gone. Xylaria growled, her claws flexing against her gauntlet. This human was not normal. He moved with an unnatural awareness, slipping through her grip like smoke. Her comm crackled. Status report, Huntress. Her superior's voice was ice-cold. She took a breath before responding. The target is still at large. A long pause. Then the voice returned, filled with disapproval. That is unfortunate. Yes. Yes, it was. Xylaria gritted her fangs and leapt off the rooftop, landing in a crouch on the street below. No more games. No more patience. Jake Carter wasn't just a rogue, he was an anomaly, and the Nazarian High Order did not appreciate anomalies. She activated her tracking scanner. Thermal scan negative. Motion detection, nothing. Atmospheric displacement, only the usual city noise. But there was something. A faint scent, human sweat, laced with a hint of machine grease and chocolate? Her nostrils flared. He was close. She slipped through the neon-lit alley, moving like a shadow, every movement calculated. A huntress of her caliber did not get tricked, she adapted, she learned. Jake had an unnatural ability to anticipate her every move, which meant she had to think like him. A flicker of movement caught her eye. A figure slipping into a side door. She reached the entrance in seconds, testing the handle. Locked. She pulled out her plasma cutter and sliced through the panel. The door slid open with a quiet hiss. Inside, the room was dark, the air thick with the scent of overheated electronics. A hacker's den. On a nearby desk, a small screen flickered to life. Jake's voice played through a speaker. Took you long enough. She turned sharply, aiming at the sound. Nothing. A recorded message. You're predictable, Xylaria. You keep thinking like a warrior, not a survivor. That's why I keep winning. Her fangs bared. Oh, and by the way, you might want to move. The floor beneath her shifted. She lunged, but it was too late. The entire section of the room collapsed, sending her plunging into a concealed cargo chute. The world spun. She hated gravity traps. A rough landing. She crashed into a pile of discarded supply crates, her armor absorbing the brunt of the fall. No major injuries, but her pride took a serious hit. Then, the slow, deliberate sound of clapping. She looked up. Jake Carter stood on the other side of the dimly lit loading bay, arms crossed, that damned smirk never leaving his face. Well, well. You actually made it through that one. I'm impressed. She shot to her feet. I will tear your spine out and wear it as a trophy. He laughed. A full-bodied, completely unbothered laugh. You say the most romantic things. He took a step forward, hands raised. Now, don't take this the wrong way, but you're kind of terrible at catching me. Xylaria lunged. Jake dodged. The chase resumed. Xylaria was done playing. Every calculated move, every advanced tactic, and every ounce of her training had been rendered useless by this infuriating human. Jake Carter didn't just evade her, he toyed with her. Every time she thought she had him, he slipped away with that smug grin and a one-liner that made her blood boil. Not this time. She crouched on the steel framework of the abandoned docking bay, her cloak engaged, her breathing controlled. Below, Jake strolled into view, hands in his pockets, completely unaware. Perfect. She dropped, her body a missile of pure precision. Her momentum alone should have flattened him, but at the last second, he sidestepped. Again. Xyleria hit the ground hard, skidding to a stop. Jake clicked his tongue, arms crossed. You keep falling for me, Huntress. Kinda sweet, honestly. She launched herself at him. Jake twisted away, smooth as ever, and before she could pivot, his foot nudged a loose metal panel, sending her plummeting through another trapdoor. The world spun. She landed hard, her back slamming against a crate labeled nutrient rations, do not stomp on. Her head throbbed. Her dignity was bleeding out. Jake's voice drifted down. You know, you really should look where you're going. She snarled and vaulted out of the pit, her claws slicing through the air where his head had been a second earlier. He backpedaled, laughing. I don't get it, he mused, effortlessly dodging every attack. You're what? The galaxy's most elite tracker? And yet you just can't seem to catch me. Her next strike almost grazed him. Almost. But he twisted, fluid and maddeningly fast, dodging at the last second. That was closer, he admitted, rubbing his chin. I'm almost impressed. Xyleria's breath came in sharp bursts. This wasn't possible. No species, none, had reflexes fast enough to keep up with an Azarian huntress. Unless… Jake Carter, she growled, realization dawning. You're not normal, are you? His grin widened. Define normal. Her mind raced. No human should have been this good at anticipating an apex predator. Was he enhanced? Augmented? A genetic experiment? She activated her scanner mid-lunge. Jake sidestepped, as usual, but this time, she wasn't aiming for him. Her wrist device beeped, flashing a warning. Her eyes narrowed. Energy fluctuations. Chronal distortions. You're cheating, she hissed. Jake raised an eyebrow. Cheating's such a harsh word. Time distortion? She advanced slowly now, recalculating everything. You're not dodging me. You're seeing it happen before it does. He tapped his temple. Ding ding ding. Her claws flexed. That's illegal. I know, he said, completely unbothered. That explained everything. The split-second movements, the effortless counters, the way he always knew where she'd strike. Somehow, Jake Carter had access to microsecond time dilation. No wonder he was always one step ahead. She exhaled slowly. This changed things. Jake tilted his head. You're thinking really hard about something, aren't you? Then, for the first time since this ridiculous hunt began. She smiled. Jake hesitated. Oh. That's new. Xyleria rolled her shoulders, relaxing into a stance she knew he wouldn't expect. You're right, human. I can't catch you. His smirk returned. Took you long enough. But, she continued, stepping closer, purposefully letting him think she was giving up. That's not really the point anymore, is it? Jake squinted. What are you? She moved. Not fast. Not aggressive. Not the way he expected. And that's when he finally slipped. One tiny miscalculation, because for the first time, he didn't see what was coming. And in the blink of an eye, she had him pinned. Jake lay flat against the cold metal flooring, his arms pinned above his head, Xyleria's weight pressing down against him. For the first time in this entire ridiculous chase, he wasn't smirking. Well, he breathed, blinking up at her. Didn't see that coming. She tightened her grip on his wrists, claws barely pricking his skin. No, you didn't. Satisfaction curled in her chest. She had him. Finally. Jake shifted slightly beneath her, testing her hold. You sure you want to be in this position, Huntress? Looks a little compromising. Her jaw tensed, ignoring the very obvious implications. "You're mine now." His brows lifted. "That's a hell of a statement," she growled, ignoring the heat creeping up her spine. This was about the mission, not whatever irritatingly smug pheromone cocktail this human was exuding. "Focus." "No," she continued, her voice firm. "You're going to explain how you've been manipulating time." Jake exhaled, still annoyingly casual despite being completely overpowered. "It's not that complicated. Just a bit of localized time dilation. A fraction of a second ahead, just enough to dodge. Doesn't last long. Burns out quick. Illegal," she repeated. "Unstable. Yeah, and dangerous," he added, shifting again under her weight. "Look, if you keep straddling me like this, you might make me think you don't actually want to turn me in." Her claws dug a little deeper. "You think this is a joke?" His lips quirked. "Well, considering I'm pinned under a gorgeous, deadly alien woman who's apparently very good at handling her prey, I'd say it's either a joke or a really interesting situation." She hated the way her body reacted to that. Nizarian physiology wasn't built for blushing, but her temperature spiked nonetheless. Jake's grin widened. "Oh, you felt that, didn't you?" Her grip faltered, for half a second. He took advantage. With a sudden shift, he used his hips, of all things, to knock her balance off, rolling them both. Now he was on top. Silaria snarled, twisting to counter, but his hands were already pressing her shoulders down. "Fast learner," he mused. "I like that." She bucked up, but he leaned his weight in, effectively trapping her. His face hovered just inches from hers now, close enough for her to feel his breath. "I could have run," he murmured, voice lower now. "I could have slipped away before you ever touched me." Her breathing shallowed. "Then why didn't you?" His smirk softened just slightly. "Maybe I wanted to see what would happen if I let you catch me." Something in her stomach flipped. Jake Carter had never been running. He'd been leading her. Her claws clenched against the floor, her heart pounding against her ribcage. "You've been playing me this entire time," he chuckled. "And yet, you're still here." Damn him. Damn him. But she didn't move. Silaria's breathing was steady, but her mind raced. She was the hunter. She had trained for years to track and capture prey with deadly efficiency. Yet here she was, pinned beneath a human, her own instincts betraying her. Jake tilted his head, studying her like she was the anomaly. "You know," he mused, his fingers casually resting near her wrist. "I've escaped bounty hunters before. But you didn't actually want to catch me, did you?" Her jaw tightened. "You think I've wasted my time for fun?" He grinned. "I think you're too smart to chase something this hard unless you're after more than a bounty." She ignored the heat curling through her gut. "You're underestimating how much I enjoy the thought of locking you in a containment cell." "Oh, I don't doubt that." His tone was amused, but his eyes, sharp, calculating, never left hers. "But that's not why you're hesitating, is it?" Silaria had fought some of the worst creatures in the galaxy. She had never hesitated. Until now. Until this damn human had forced her to question everything. Jake exhaled, voice dropping. "What happens after this, Huntress? You haul me back, turn me in, collect your pay, and then what? Go back to chasing ghosts?" She refused to acknowledge how much that stung. She had spent years tracking criminals, running missions, never staying in one place for too long. Never stopping long enough to question whether the chase was the only thing keeping her going. His grip loosened. He wasn't holding her down anymore. She could flip him. She could end this. But she didn't move. Jake watched her carefully. "There it is," he said softly. "That moment of doubt." She hated that he could read her so easily. Hated it even more that he was right. His lips curled again, but this time, it wasn't a smirk. It was something quieter. "I'm not running, Silaria." That was the real trap, wasn't it? She had never truly been hunting him. He had been leading her here. To this moment. To this choice. She exhaled, slow and controlled, her claws retracting. You're an infuriating man. Jake grinned. I get that a lot. Her hand tightened once, just enough for him to feel it. A silent message. A warning. A challenge. Then she released him. He pushed himself up, offering a hand. She stared at it for a beat too long before accepting. Jake rolled his shoulders. So, does this mean you're done trying to arrest me, or should I expect another ambush tomorrow? She should say yes. Should tell him that next time, she'd drag him in kicking and screaming. But the words never came. Instead, she turned, stepping past him. You should keep running, Carter. A chuckle. And if I don't? She glanced over her shoulder, allowing the faintest smirk to touch her lips. Then I guess I'll just have to catch you again. And just like that, she was gone. Jake let out a low whistle. Now that's interesting. Then he grinned. And followed.